What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, I know I did two other videos talking about the subject, but I'm getting a lot of feedback, a lot of comments. Um, People are just saying crazy, ignorant, stupid shit about the Adrian Broner. So, I like to come with facts. So, I brought some facts to you guys. Take a look at the evidence, and you be the judge of it. So, as far as Adrian Broner, the consensus is from a lot of boxing fans or just people who are not, they don't admire Adrian Broner, that he's stupid, he's ducking, he learned from Floyd to cherry pick, he's trying to skip over the 140-pound division. If you watch the previous videos, I don't want to go too much in depth, but I'll put it in the video responses. You watch the previous videos, you'll know that the Broner camp decided that they want to fight a couple times this year. They said 2013 is the year for Broner. They're looking for fights, and they're trying to get him out there, trying to get him the exposure they feel he deserves. So he beat Gavin Reese. He came out pretty much unscathed. Gavin Reese gave a spirited effort. However, he came up short. If you watch the post-fight conference, Adrian Broner didn't look marked up. He didn't look all swollen. And he's young, so he's ready to fight again. They're trying to make a fight with Ricky Burns. Ricky Burns declined that fight. Again, he's been calling Ricky Burns out. Ricky Burns was supposed to fight in March against Miguel Vasquez, and Vasquez got some kind of food contamination, food poisoning in Mexico, some food he ate, and he had to postpone the fight. Instead of just postponing it for a later date like Vasquez wanted, Ricky Burns pulls out of the fight completely, like, fuck that, we're not fighting. So it's at a standstill. They're not fighting as of right now. And Vasquez still wants to fight him, but Ricky Burns pulled out for whatever reason. And he switched his management or some shit. And Broner's been calling him out. Broner's on Twitter. He left a tweet saying something to the effect of, now that your Vasquez fight is canceled, fight me, you bitch. And some people are trying to make this bigger than what it is. Vasquez is a talented fighter, but he doesn't draw much of a crowd. Whereas Ricky Burns at least has a whole different country, a different demographic available to him in the UK. Adrian Broner's trying to establish his brand. That's why I believe he is calling out Ricky Burns more. They're both title holders in the division, but Ricky Burns brings a different demographic of fan, and that's the UK, that's England. So he can't fight he can't fight Burns because Burns doesn't look like he wants to fight. In the previous video, like I said, check the video responses. He can't fight by June really any of the heavy hitters or the marquee names that we would want to see him fight in the 140-pound division. Real quick, Brandon Rios, Mike Alvarado, 140-pounders, they're fighting each other this month, March 30th. Can't fight them. They're working on a deal to do Lamont Peterson versus Lucas Matisse. Can't do that. Plus, Broner's friends with Lamont Peterson, so I don't know if we'll ever see that. Danny Garcia, Zab Judah, that fight was postponed based on the fact that Danny Garcia had a thumb and rib injury. So that won't be enough time for Danny Garcia to fight in April and then fight Broner in June. Fight can't happen. Bradis Prescott has a fight. Those are the main people that I heard that people want to see Broner fight. Amir Khan, another example. Amir Khan is fighting Diaz. That fight can't happen. He's fighting in the UK. So who can Broner fight? He's out of dancing partners as of right now. Now, in the future, if he never fights anyone at the 140-pound division, then that's something. And you have to kind of see what his intentions are. If he says, hey, I'm staying at welterweight, then okay, it's possible he is ducking. He didn't want to see anybody at the 140-pound division. But that hasn't happened, and most of you guys aren't Nostradamus because you leave dumb predictions on who's going to win the fight, and you guys are horribly wrong. So obviously you guys aren't psychic. Some of you guys leave very good predictions and comments. So shout out to y'all. So realistically, the 140-pound division, as much as we want to see him move to that level, because by far, I've said this previously, it's the most stacked division in boxing. So as much as we want to see that, it's not feasible to see Broner fight really any of the dope talent in the 140-pound division. Again, the only person I can think of is someone like a Jose, who doesn't have a fan base in the U.S. He gained my respect for the Lucas Matisse fight, but it's not really a money fight. And a Jose doesn't bring a belt. Lucas Matisse took that off him. He doesn't have, so what is he bringing to the table? It's like a fucking potluck. If you have a potluck at your job and the greediest person who's eating everybody else's food didn't bring nothing, aren't you going to be a little bit mad? Like, I mean, and this is no disrespect to Jose. I'm just being so brutally honest because it's a fact. What does he bring to the table? A tricky style of fighting, no belt, and no money because it's not really much of a fan base. Only the hardcore boxing fans who follow the sport and maybe seen the Lucas Matisse fight will even know who a Jose is. I even said this in my previous video. I didn't even know who a Jose was before the Lucas Matisse fight. I mean, I heard his name, but I didn't know who he was in terms of I followed his career. That's what I'm referring to. But he definitely gained my respect. It just doesn't, it's not a fight that makes sense. And he's coming off of a loss. So instead of facing somebody who might extend your loss, then for the sake of rebuilding his career, it doesn't even seem like his management would want that fight. I know he said in an interview on YouTube that he's down for that fight. So anyway, that's the 140-pound division. Okay, 135-pound division. He already beat the top dog his very first fight, Antonio DeMarco, and he convincingly beat him. Then he beat Gavin Reese, another person with heart, chin. Ricky Burns doesn't want to fight him. Now, what you guys are sending me comments saying he's a bitch, Broner's a bitch, he doesn't want to fight Richard Abril, he doesn't want to fight Miguel Vasquez. Like, are you serious? So, you mean to tell me a lot of you guys are complaining that Broner only is winning because he outweighs his opponents and that's why he beat Escobedo and he's bigger than everybody and that kind of thing? So you're telling me instead of moving up 2 weight classes to fight Paulie Malignaggi, you want to see him stay in the current weight class to fight Richard Abril and Miguel Vasquez? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these guys have nothing to offer. They are talented. I think Richard Abril beat Brandon Rios. But realistically, in my honest opinion, I think all 3 fighters, Paulie Malignaggi, Richard Abril, or Miguel Vasquez, if they do beat Broner, it would be by outscoring him, outboxing him, outpointing him. I don't see them knocking him out. So, let's break down some of the facts. Richard Abril, his age, he's 30 years old. Paulie Malignaggi, 32, 2 years older. Richard Abril's height, 5'9". Paulie Malignaggi, 5'8.5". So, Richard is half inch taller. And Richard Abril has a 72-inch reach. Paulie Malignaggi has a 70-inch reach. Now, let's look at resume. Richard Abril is on a 1-win fight streak, and that win was to Bogaray on Showtime. Previously, he lost to Brandon Rios. This is controversial. I think he should have won, but it's not based on what we think. As the record sits, he won. Same thing with people who argue Timothy Bradley shouldn't have beat Pacquiao. Well, look at Timothy Bradley's record on Wikipedia, and he's still undefeated, and Pacquiao has 2 losses back-to-back. So there's nothing anyone could do about that. So as it sits, Richard Abril is on a 1-win streak. Paulie Malignaggi is on a 5-win streak. If you look at the 3 losses, I believe Abril has 3 losses. They're the only names that are really, really relevant in the sport of boxing. He lost to Brandon Rios, Hank Lundy, and Bradis Prescott. But if you look at a lot of his other fights that he did beat, these people aren't marquee names that just anybody would know. Again, his biggest names that he has on his resume, he lost to Hank Lundy, Bradis Prescott, who beat Amir Khan, and Brandon Rios. So tell me someone else on his resume that he's beaten other than Bogaray, that's his 1-win streak, that has a huge name in the sport. Look at Paulie Malignaggi's resume. He beat Sinchenko, despite what anybody says, he beat him. He beat Pablo Cesar Cano, another controversial fight, but he beat him. And then he's been in there with people like Miguel Cotto, Amir Khan, Ricky Hatton, and Miguel Cotto. He later beat Miguel Cotto's brother, Jose Miguel Cotto. Now, you avid boxing fans know Jose Miguel Cotto also fought the beloved Canelo Alvarez. And in the round 1, he gave Canelo problems and he had Canelo stunned for a moment. Canelo composed himself, went on to win that fight. So look at resumes and tell me Paulie Malignaggi hasn't been in there with probably better, more marquee, famous boxers. Again, Sinchenko, Pablo Cesar Cano, Jose Miguel Cotto, Amir Khan, Ricky Hatton, Juan Diaz. He fought Juan Diaz twice, and he won one and lost one. But the one he lost, a lot of people thought that he should have won. And Diaz is from Texas, and it was in Texas, so there was a lot of controversy based on that, where he even had a rant after saying he should have won and he was robbed. So he was in there with Baby Bull. Resume wise, his resume is a lot more solid. Win, lose, or draw, he still was in there with people like Miguel Cotto, Ricky Hatton, Amir Khan. He's in there with better opposition. Again, Richard Abril, his best opposition, his biggest names, he lost to them. Brandon Rios, Hank Lundy, Bradis Prescott. Now, if you look at Miguel Vasquez, he's an inch and a half taller than Paulie Malignaggi. He's 26, so he's a lot younger than Paulie Malignaggi. And he also has a 2-inch reach advantage. Now, I'm going to tell you his last couple opponents. Mercito Gesta, Marvin Quintero, Daniel Ata, Ameth Diaz, Marlon Aguilar, Leonardo Zapavinga, Ricardo Dominguez, Jinhoon Kim. Who are any of these people? You can't honestly tell me that you follow all of these people's career. I named the last couple of opponents. These people aren't dominant fighters in the sport. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Richard Abril or Miguel Vasquez can't put up a good fight. But what I am saying is, how are you going to discredit Paulie Malignaggi, who's been in there with some of the best fighters of the newer generation, and somebody they were actually even considering to fight Floyd Mayweather at a point, but you're gunning for Miguel Vasquez or Richard Abril? They're all light punchers. Paulie Malignaggi, Richard Abril, Vasquez, they're all light punchers. None of them are fear punchers like a Matisse or Gennady Golovkin. None of them carry remotely that punching power. So, what is it? Resume-wise, again, some of you guys are puppets, and I think you say these things because that's what you hear. You hear other people say, oh, he needs to fight Miguel Vasquez. He needs to fight Richard Abril. For what? So you mean to tell me he should fight people that are already in his current division, even though you complain about him outweighing opponents, as opposed to going up to 147 to fight a guy who would have to beat him in the same manner as the guys at 135, and that's by outscoring him, because most likely they would knock him out? That makes no sense. Paulie Malignaggi, he knows a lot about boxing. He's not a big puncher. I've never said he was, but he's been in there with top dogs. Both Cottos. He's been in there with Hattons, Amir Khans. I don't see how you think Richard Abril or Miguel Vasquez is just so much better of a fight. Now let's look at it from a business sense. Richard Abril and Bogaray, that took place, I think, at the Hard Rock in Vegas, that sold 1,137 tickets. It did a $116,000 gate, and they gave away 311 tickets for free. 209 tickets went unsold, so it was nowhere near sold out. And then you have Paulie Malignaggi's last appearance. It was the Barclays grand opening. It did have other fights like Kid Chocolate was on it, and Eric Morales versus Danny Garcia. But realistically, nobody really wanted to see Danny Garcia versus Eric Morales too. So it wasn't like any of the fights were just spectacular, like Canelo and Trout, or Guerrero versus Mayweather, or Abner Mars versus Ponce de Leon. None of them were just fights like that, like Nonito and Rigando. Like, none of the fights were just that spectacular. Again, it was a rematch clause, so Garcia had to fight Morales for the second time. And that fight card did $800,000 gate. And it had, 11,000 plus in attendance. So, business-wise, who makes more sense to fight Paulie Malignaggi? He's participated in a bigger fight. He's a bigger name. He's also a light puncher. It just doesn't make sense. Let me know what you guys think. Richard Abril, Paulie Malignaggi. Miguel Vasquez. What makes you think Vasquez or Abril is so much better than Paulie Malignaggi as in terms of a fight? Um, Only other person I've heard is Gamboa, and honestly, he looked shitty in his last performance. So I don't know that he wants to fight Broner. This will be his first fight at 135, I believe. So let me know what you guys think. Till next video, Eagle signing off.